Can you confirm you will not allow any conduct like what is alleged to continue at the DOJ?
I'm not going to talk about anything that's alleged. What I will talk about with you, hold on, you asked me a question and I get to answer it. What you asked me, alleged conduct that's part of a pending whistleblower lawsuit that was filed on the eve prior to Amal Boove's hearing today.
I'm not asking
highly
about that
suspicious.
case
Hold on, let me keep going.
Attorney
I would
General
run through a
Bondi,
wall
this
for
is my
Amal
time,
Boove
Mr. Chairman,
and Todd
I would like
Blanch.
to continue with my questions. I have very limited time.
Senator Murray.
Thank you. I just want you to confirm for this you will not allow conduct like that at the DOJ. Yes or no?
Today's Senate hearing gave us a defining clash between accountability and chaos. Senator Patty Murray didn't hold back as she grilled Attorney General Pam Bondi on whistleblower retaliation, illegal grant cuts, and the dismantling of protections for women and victims of violence. This wasn't just another exchange. It was a powerful reminder that our institutions are on the line, that truth still matters, and that Democrats are standing up for the rule of law, while Trump's Justice Department doubles down on loyalty tests and political games. Let's break down what happened, why it matters, and how this moment reveals the deep crisis facing American democracy.
We're joined by the Vice Chairman of the full committee. Senator Murray is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General Bondi, we are in a deeply alarming moment where law and order is being replaced by chaos and corruption and really whatever Trump wants. And your department's independence and its capacity to do its job have eroded before our eyes. We have seen respected career officials who've been fired for doing their job. Thousands more are being pushed out with your buyouts and the threat of mass firings, and entire divisions are being eliminated, and grants have been canceled illegally. So I have questions about how and why those decisions are being made, and importantly, whether you're adequately resourcing DOJ to do its job. But before I turn to my questions, I do want to raise my alarm about the troubling pattern of trampling basic rights. Detainees, including U.S. citizens, being shipped overseas without any due process. Elected officials are detained for conducting oversight, and a U.S. senator gets tackled to the ground for asking questions at a press conference. This is not the country I know or the values I believe in, and I hope that colleagues on both sides of the aisle will agree with that. Now, to the questions. Yesterday, and I know that Senator Van Hollen raised this issue, a former DOJ attorney filed a protected whistleblower complaint accusing Deputy AG Amal Boove and senior DOJ leadership of defying court orders, including through, quote, lack of candor, deliberate delay, and disinformation, unquote. The complaint also accuses this administration of firing the whistleblower for, quote, telling the truth to the court. These allegations are deeply concerning. Now, I know you said that you can't discuss the case, but can you confirm that you agree that this administration should follow court orders?
We will follow court orders, Senator. The entire administration will follow court orders. The problem arises in the district courts. All these district courts throughout the country are tying our hands. But here's how we will follow them when we get to the United Supreme Court.
I need to ask
we're
you
winning.
a number of questions.
And so, yes,
I know
we're following the orders of the court.
Let me ask my questions. Can you confirm you will not allow any conduct like what is alleged to continue at the DOJ?
I'm not going to talk about anything that's alleged. What I will talk about with you, hold on, you asked me a question and I get to answer it. What you asked me, alleged conduct that's part of a pending whistleblower lawsuit that was filed on the eve prior to Amal Boove's hearing today.
I'm not asking
highly
about that
suspicious.
Case
hold on, let me keep going.
Attorney
I would
General
run
Bondi,
through a wall for
my
Amal
time,
Boove
Chairman,
and
I
Todd
would like to
Blanch.
continue with my questions. I have very limited time.
Senator Murray.
Thank you. I just want you to confirm for this you will not allow conduct like that at the DOJ. Yes or no?
I will always support and defend Amal Boove, and I will defend Todd Blanch. They are two of the finest people I know and two of the ethical
asking about the
people
conduct.
I know.
Let me keep going here. Now, in April, DOJ abruptly terminated over 300 public safety grants that had already gone through a very rigorous and fair and apolitical application process with no explanation. This is funding to investigate and prosecute drug trafficking, to support foster care kids who experienced abuse or neglect, to expand access to forensic exams to prosecute violent crimes like sexual assault. These really senseless cancellations have already forced public safety organizations to cut employees and services. So when I want to ask you, when you cut off the community-based violence intervention and prevention initiative funding, were you aware it is used to prevent and reduce violent crime?
Yeah, Senator, you weren't here for that, so I'm going to have to repeat myself. We have cut grants. I think we've cut 6%. But if we have cut a grant that you feel should not be cut, please reach out to me. I will personally look at it. We've turned multiple grants back on. Okay. We have an appeal process. But if you want to come to me directly, I would be happy to sit down with you and look at that and help you.
I'm happy. I appreciate that.
Again, we're doing everything we can.
Okay, but let me just ask you, when you cut off the expanding access to sexual assault forensic examination grant, were you aware that that grant helps our authorities prosecute rape and sexual assault?
I have no idea about that specific grant you're talking about. That's why I said if you want to come sit down with me, I would never cut a grant intentionally that has anything to do.
Those recipients on the other end across the country.
Can you give me the details of that grant?
I can absolutely do that, and my staff will get that to you. But those are two critical ones that I just wanted to ask you about today.
Again, we've turned many grants back on, and we'll continue to. If you want to call me, and we can discuss them with you.
Okay, in your budget request, you propose consolidating the Office on Violence Against Women into the Office of Justice Programs. In 2002, Congress actually codified the office as a permanent, separate, and independent office to implement the Violence Against Women Act. We did that to make sure that violent crimes against women receive the necessary attention, expertise, and resources, and to give the office a strong, independent voice within the Justice Department and federal government. Now your department wants to fade that into the OJP, which violates the intent of the law that we passed. It makes grant programs less effective, and it places a lot more barriers for victims and services they need. And I see that you're cutting the office's resources by about a third. So will you commit to us, the Appropriations Committee, to follow the law and maintain OVW as a separate grant entity?
I will follow the law, but I will not keep that as a separate grant entity. You and I can disagree all day long on what the law is. Well, that's being consolidated into the Office of Justice Programs. I'm not going to cut, let me answer, I'm not going to cut anything that's going to hurt violence against women.
Not my question.
It will eliminate
I'm asking, just for your information, Attorney General, in 2002, we codified the office as a permanent, separate, and independent office. So that you need to go back and take a look at that. I know my time is out, but I thank you very much for the time.
The hearing room was tense from the very beginning, but it reached a boiling point when Senator Patty Murray, the vice chair of the full committee, took her turn to question Attorney General Pam Bondi. Murray's words cut through the air with a kind of clarity and urgency that only comes when the stakes are existential. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. She went straight to the heart of what many Americans have been feeling, that the Department of Justice under Donald Trump has become less about justice and more about whatever the president wants on any given day. Senator Murray laid it out plainly. She spoke about law and order being replaced with chaos and corruption, about career officials being pushed out, grants being cut illegally, and entire divisions within the DOJ being dismantled. She even reminded everyone in that chamber, and by extension the American public, of some deeply troubling events. Detainees, including U.S. citizens, being shipped overseas without due process, elected officials being detained simply for conducting oversight, and even a sitting U.S. senator physically tackled for daring to ask questions at a press conference. This wasn't hyperbole. This was a catalog of abuses that should alarm every person who believes in democracy. And yet, when Attorney General Bondi responded, what we saw was not accountability or even seriousness. What we saw was deflection, defense, and loyalty pledges. Murray asked a straightforward question: would the administration follow court orders? Bondi's answer was telling. Instead of unequivocally committing to the rule of law, she framed compliance in terms of waiting until cases reached the Supreme Court. That is not respect for the judiciary. That is an attempt to bypass rulings that this administration finds inconvenient. Senator Chris Van Hollen had raised related concerns just the day before, particularly about a whistleblower complaint that directly accused Deputy AG Amal Boove and senior DOJ leadership of defying court orders through what the whistleblower called a lack of candor, deliberate delay, and disinformation. Think about that for a moment. A DOJ attorney, sworn to uphold the law, came forward to tell the truth to a court, and for that, they were allegedly fired. This is the exact kind of retaliation that corrodes the foundation of justice. Instead of standing with truth-tellers, Bondi stood firmly with her inner circle. "I would run through a wall for Amal Boove and Todd Blanch," she declared. That loyalty statement was striking, not a commitment to impartial justice, not a defense of whistleblowers, but a personal allegiance to political allies. Senator Murray wasn't about to let the conversation drift. She turned immediately to the issue of grants that keep communities safe, that support foster children, that fund forensic exams for survivors of sexual assault, that help prosecutors take on drug trafficking and violent crime. These grants had already been vetted through rigorous, fair, apolitical processes. And yet, Bondi's DOJ abruptly terminated over 300 of them. Murray pressed her, "Did you understand that by cutting these programs, you were directly undermining efforts to prevent crime, prosecute rape, and protect vulnerable children?" Bondi's answers were evasive at best. She spoke in generalities, about a 6% cut, about an appeal process, about being willing to meet with Murray privately to discuss the details. But Murray was making a larger point. This wasn't just about numbers on a budget sheet. These were real programs affecting real lives. Cutting funding for forensic rape exams isn't just a bureaucratic adjustment. It's a decision that directly harms survivors and makes justice harder to achieve. Cutting grants for violence prevention isn't just a budget shuffle. It's a decision that increases the likelihood of more communities experiencing the pain of gun violence and abuse. Then came perhaps the most striking moment. Murray reminded Bondi of the Office on Violence Against Women. In 2002, Congress codified this office as a permanent, independent entity precisely to ensure that crimes against women received the necessary focus, resources, and expertise. Democrats and Republicans alike recognized that this was not an office that should be buried inside a larger bureaucracy, where its voice could be diluted or ignored. Yet, Bondi's budget proposed consolidating it into the Office of Justice Programs, essentially erasing its independence. Murray was clear. This violated the intent of Congress. It undermined protections for women, it placed unnecessary barriers between victims and the resources they need, and it represented yet another example of the Trump DOJ taking steps backward at a time when America desperately needs progress. Bondi, once again, refused to budge. She insisted she would follow the law, but in the same breath claimed she would not maintain the office as a separate grant entity. This wasn't following the law. It was reinterpreting the law to serve an agenda. For Democrats, this exchange captured everything wrong with the Trump Justice Department. At a moment when we should be strengthening oversight, protecting whistleblowers, expanding resources for survivors of violence, and reinforcing the independence of the DOJ, the administration was doing the exact opposite. They were centralizing power, retaliating against truth-tellers, cutting off critical programs, and shielding political allies from accountability. Senator Murray's line of questioning was more than just oversight. It was a warning. She made it clear that this isn't the America she knows, and it isn't the America that millions of us believe in. Her words were not partisan theatrics. They were a defense of fundamental democratic values: respect for court orders, protection for whistleblowers, independence for institutions that serve the vulnerable, a commitment to protecting women from violence. These are not Democratic values or Republican values. They are American values. But in this moment, it was only Democrats like Murray and Van Hollen who seemed willing to fight for them. Republicans, by and large, have chosen silence, or worse, complicity. Bondi's loyalty pledges to Amal Boove and Todd Blanch highlighted exactly how deep this culture of allegiance has sunk. The DOJ is supposed to serve the people, not the political ambitions of a president or his inner circle. As we reflect on this hearing, the contrast could not be sharper. On one side, Senator Patty Murray, standing firm, demanding answers, fighting for grants that save lives and institutions that uphold justice. On the other side, Attorney General Pam Bondi, offering half answers, personal defenses, and a clear unwillingness to stand up to political power. This is the crisis we face in 2025. It's not just about one senator versus one attorney general. It's about whether the Department of Justice will remain independent, whether our courts will be respected, whether whistleblowers will be protected, whether survivors of violence will be supported, and whether the rule of law will mean anything at all. Murray's persistence in the face of evasions was itself a model of leadership. She knew her time was limited, but she refused to let Bondi slip away from the core issues. She pushed for clarity on grants, she demanded answers on the Violence Against Women office, and she spotlighted the whistleblower allegations even when Bondi tried to brush them aside. That is what real oversight looks like. That is what commitment to democracy looks like. At the end of the day, hearings like this matter because they reveal what's really at stake. Behind the procedural language, the back and forth, and the evasive answers lies a fundamental battle for the soul of American justice. Do we want a DOJ that stands with truth tellers or one that silences them? Do we want programs that support victims of violence, or do we want those programs gutted in the name of political expediency? Do we want a government that respects court orders or one that views them as obstacles to be bypassed? Senator Patty Murray gave us the questions. Now it's up to us, the American people, to demand the answers.